The death toll from the KwaZulu-Natal floods has risen to 7. Hundreds of people have also been left homeless following devastating rains in Inanda and surrounding areas. In fact, climate change has been blamed for the trail of destruction which has battered parts of the province for the second time in just over 2 years. Disaster management teams are still on the ground to check if there are more casualties. eNCA reporter Lethiwe Mdluli has been visiting affected areas and joins us live right now. Good evening, Lethiwe, and welcome. We know that areas like Inanda and surrounds were also affected during the floods in April last year. I mean, is government making any plans to evacuate people from these areas which clearly are vulnerable?
And you know, William, today we spent the better part of today visiting these areas, and we were speaking to residents about some of the needs because, of course, as you mentioned, they were affected by the floods last year, and they've been affected by the floods that happened recently on Tuesday. And their call to government is to relocate them to safer areas. They are saying that they've been calling for this to happen for years, but unfortunately there's been no response from government. We spoke to a resident who was a victim recently, and she did share that as a community in Inanda, they've been speaking about this with their councillor. They've been engaging with officials who visit them, and unfortunately it's been years and there's nothing happening. And more recently now, they are more scared for their lives because they can see that where they're living, it's very dangerous. We also visited the Overport area. We hadn't visited that area since Tuesday because we were in Inanda, which was the hardest hit place. And in Overport, the residents there are saying that the existing issues such as old infrastructure is then now adding on to their issues, because on Tuesday they saw that the broken down pipes could not hold up because of the bad weather. Now they don't have water, they don't have electricity due to the bad weather on Tuesday, but they are saying that if the municipality fixed the old infrastructure, none of this will be happening. We also saw like a few houses that were also damaged because of the floods. So a lot of residents are just not happy with the work of the government, especially those who fell victim recently. They are asking to be relocated. And as you mentioned, the death toll due to the floods has risen to 7, and we do understand that one person still remains missing. In the latest figures, the Department of Cooperative Governance has said that over 70 homes were completely destroyed by the floods, which means that at least 500 people have been left homeless. So those are the latest numbers coming through. But when I spoke to a resident earlier on who wants to be relocated to a safer area in Inanda, this is what they had to say.
When the storm came through, the water could not manage into any of the stormwater because stormwater had been blocked. So it basically came down the area of the driveway and infiltrated this area, damaged a home right in front, also damaged the bottom and some houses in the bottom. Yeah. So that's the situation we're sitting with. We also have a lot of blocked sewers in the area that's been ongoing for the last more than 3 years. Yeah. And I'm sure we will see the areas. We'll enlighten you with that areas that we're going to go to. We've got active citizens on our side that assist us, work contribution towards people. Some of our people in the areas have had no water for the last 4 days also. And we've been calling for a tanker. You know, we've been calling for a tanker from the municipality, from our councillor, but everything has been going on deaf ears. So the public themselves now, as ratepayers, we have been now taking out money from our own pockets, and now we've been funding to give people water that don't have water for many days.
Lethiwe, you've obviously had a chance to speak to some of the other residents. What's the mood like? What are they telling you?
Well, William, I'd like to apologize. I believe that the bite that played was from a resident in Overport who was complaining about the fact that they don't have water. They haven't had water for 4 days due to the bad weather. But the other residents, of course, they are calling for the government to intervene, because at the moment, those victims or those people who were left homeless due to the floods are now being housed at community halls. We went there yesterday to speak to the residents, and they were saying saying that they lost everything and they need assistance from government. But what we do understand right now is that the Department of Human Settlements is trying to provide people with building material. When we went to Inanda a bit earlier on, we saw people trying to rebuild. But we also got a chance to speak to the mayor of eThekwini, Kaunda, about their efforts and also the calls from the residents as to what they're going to do, because these people are asking to be relocated, and the mayor is basically saying that they will be relocating victims, but unfortunately it's going to be a process. They are saying that it's going to take a really long time for them to relocate each and every person that has built a home in a dangerous zone. He's also saying that they're still working towards finding land for the homeless people who were victims of the floods last year. So it's a long process. There's a lot of people who are affected, and unfortunately the government is not giving straight answers or time frames as to when these people will be moved. But when we spoke to the mayor a bit earlier on about relocating the flood victims, this is what he had to say.
Part of the assessments we are conducting, we have engineers, we have people, our specialists on environmental issues and disaster management. Part of what they are assessing is whether there is a need to relocate people from the areas which are not safe, especially floodplain areas where people become vulnerable whenever there are disasters. So we have a program to relocate those communities, but we'll assess the number, how many of those households that needs to be relocated to be put on the safe areas. We have already secured 15 land parcels in the municipality to deal with the previous floods victims, but you can also include those whom we see that they are vulnerable, because where they are located, it really places them on danger whenever these storms visit us.
That's our reporter Lethiwe Mdluli live to us from Durban. Of course, there is a huge yearly pilgrimage taking place in that place of Inanda by the Shembe Church. So we'll obviously keep our eyes very closely on the weather situation in that area in KZN.